Morocco is a beautiful North African country known for its world-class food, vibrant scenery, and strong Islamic identity. Surrounded by nations like Spain, Algeria, and Mauritania, Morocco is a cultural blend of Africa, Europe, and the Middle East. In this interview, we sit down with our brother Abdullah, a half-Moroccan, half-Iraqi UK expat who's been living in Morocco for the past 4 years. In this country profile, we talk about the ease of getting residency in Morocco, integrating as a foreigner, getting a job or starting a business in the country, and the comprehensive services that Abdullah offers to help Muslims move to Morocco. If Morocco has been on your radar, then this video might have the answers you've been looking for. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background? Are you half Moroccan?
Yeah, I'm half Moroccan, exactly. I'm half Moroccan, half Iraqi. I was born and raised in London, and 12 years ago, I ended up flying off to Japan to live and work there. And out of all places, you might ask, why Japan? I was young, and my brother previously went there, and it was a great place. And I often say the Japanese are like Muslims without the Islam in terms of their behavior, their way of life. So it was like the Hijrah before the Hijrah. The next part of the story is where I tried to leave Japan to make actual Hijrah. So, yeah.
So what inspired you to do that, to make Hijrah in the first place?
Well, I lived quite a chunk of my life in Japan, right? About 11 years. And it was nice, everything. But whenever I went to the masjid or I was around Muslims, I felt that sense of community. I felt that sense of, I fit in, if that makes sense. And I was discussing with my wife, and we said, look, we should try to leave Japan, even though it's a wonderful place, and make Hijrah. So we decided, where should we go? Oh, let's go to Turkey. So yeah, we packed our bags. Alhamdulillah, I sorted out my remote work and everything, and we hired someone to help us get residency. I'm not sure if you guys know, but you can get, I'm sure you do know actually, can get 1 year like residency as a tourist, basically, right, if you apply. But the problem is we went in the worst time ever. We went in the time the Russia-Ukraine war started. Right. So there were two problems. Everything was super expensive, especially in the places we wanted to go to. So we ended up going to somewhere called Trabzon, which is north. It's way more decently priced. It's more conservative. But there was another issue. They were rejecting visas left, right, and center at that particular time. And by the time we applied and we had all the documents and everything, for some reason they rejected our application. And even the lawyer we were working with was like, I think this is just related to what's going on. And that's what happened. After that, it's an interesting story. We said, where do we go now? We were kind of stranded, almost homeless, if you like, right? So I was just searching online just for a place to be while we could think. And the closest place was Georgia, right? And as a British citizen, I could stay in Georgia for up to a year, visa free, just like kind of just go there. Lo and behold, we had like our 4 or 5 suitcases with us and our kids and me. At the Georgia land border, they stopped us and said no entry. I'm not on a list. I'm not on anything. Right. We're really confused as to why this is happening. So we went back to the UK, kind of thought about it, spoke to my parents as well. They gave me some advice, and my mum said, why not Morocco? And I don't know, I never thought about Morocco for some reason. I used to visit as a child, like every year for summer. So long story short, it led me to Morocco. And that's why, we think we have a plan and Allah has a plan. And alhamdulillah, Turkey didn't work out, because I've been hearing some stories about people's, visas being rejected and some issue, happening recently. So yeah, alhamdulillah, I ended up in Morocco. I spent a long time trying to do it myself. And the issue was bureaucracy in Morocco is tricky. There's a joke, and it's probably relevant to a lot of Muslim countries. You ask 2 people the same question and you get 3 different answers. And, it was really frustrating and really kind of, I was almost pulling my hair out, almost gave up actually, until again, I was having a conversation with my father, and he's like, why don't you hire a lawyer? Problem is, I didn't know anyone, didn't know any lawyers. So I contacted a friend in Morocco. He's quite well connected, alhamdulillah. He linked me up with this really, really good lawyer. And my case was slightly more complicated than others. But yeah, long story short, he helped me do everything. Without him, I definitely wouldn't have been able to set it up. Well, Allah A'lam, but from where my mind was and what I tried. I feel like I exhausted all options.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, man, because there are two things. You said the challenge, right? What exactly was the challenge? Was it the immigration challenge? Was it the settling in challenge? What?
So there were a few challenges. One was lack of clarity of what I needed, right?
Mm.
Because look, I spoke to one person and they said, okay, you need this. Perfect. I got it. And they were right. But then when I went to the police station, they said, yeah, but you also need A, B, and C. There was no organization. There was no
Gotcha.
list. And it's really
Gotcha.
hard to find things online in English. So that was one of the challenges. Another one of the challenges was like getting the documents. For
Mm.
example, I don't want to overcomplicate it, but they needed a marriage certificate, right? I'm married. And the
Right.
marriage certificate had to be an Islamic one. And because I'm Muslim and I got naturalized into Morocco, I wasn't a Moroccan, but I became a Moroccan. So I went through that route. So getting those documents, we had like a non-Islamic, we had an Islamic certificate, but it wasn't official. It didn't have the official governmental stamps. So complications like that. And then they said, okay, go back to the UK, get this thing. Then I go to the UK and they say, sorry, we don't do that thing. It was just
Mm.
a mess, you know.
Right.
Nobody knew what they were doing. And it was kind of, the thing is, in Morocco, if they've never come across your situation, they don't know what to do. It's the same
Right.
with changing my license. I changed it from a Japanese license to Moroccan license. At first, they're like, "Well, we can't do this." They've never seen a Japanese license before,
Right.
you know. So that's the challenge, and that's why a lawyer really helps because he can navigate, he can show them, you know. Actually, the lawyer I hired, he actually went to a place called El Arash to do some documentation stuff, right, for me on the system, and he went to the city office there, whatever you call it. I can't remember what it's called, but he went there, and they're like, I don't know how to do what you're asking. So he kind of
Mm.
said to the guy, okay, let me sit on the computer. He actually did it for him
Right.
because it was quite
Right.
funny. Yeah, that's why I really appreciated his services. And I actually work with the same guy right now. So
Right.
alhamdulillah.
I'm going to ask you the question: is there an advantage that you are half Moroccan? So somebody can say, "Well, that was easy for you because you're half Moroccan." Is there any truth to that?
Yes and no. I would say it was kind of a disadvantage because if I didn't naturalize myself, they would have just accepted any marriage certificate because I'm not,
Uh,
you know what I'm trying to say? It made it more complicated for me. Now it's better, of course, because now I don't need to apply for visas. I don't need to do residency, you know, applications. But I still need to go through it, obviously, for my wife. She's not Moroccan.
mm.
So we still had to go through that process anyway
Right.
to get everything. But generally, yes and no. Initially, no, but now, yes.
Okay, so we hear a lot of different things about Morocco. Some things regarding some of the areas where tourism is high or European tourism is high. So for people that our audience are generally practicing Muslims, so people tend to ask the question, what areas in Morocco are best for people who want to practice Islam?
Okay, that's a good question. And it's kind of difficult to answer because you find a mix of people everywhere, right?
Mm.
But if you want to stay away from that kind of tourist kind of, you know, where people come in, you know, half naked, etc., stay away from places like, I would say, like Marrakesh, because it's just full of tourists everywhere, especially in the summer, and it's hot, so the clothes come off and you see kind of the stuff you maybe don't want to see. Places that are good, answering your question, for Muslims, I would say Tetuan is a really nice place and it's quite
Mm.
conservative. Most places in Morocco you'll find, you know, a mix, but yeah, definitely I like Tetuan. Um, some places in like more rural areas, they're more conservative, of course, because city life is always a place where there's less conservative people and other ideas are creeping in, like maybe atheism, feminism, and people are changing slightly. I would recommend Tetuan or even Tamera. That's a nice place. Um, there's like a good mosque there. Um, yeah, but anywhere is doable. The thing is, you just have to look and you have to see what you want because moving to a Muslim country is not just about obviously the Islamic side of things. You still have to like you could be in the middle of the mountain in the village, but you won't be able to handle it. You know, with everyone's
Right, right,
you.
right,
There has to be that balance. I think. Like I'm in a
right,
place called Nika. I just kind of moved there randomly because I was looking for a place. Um,
right.
but it's a quiet town close to Rabat and Casablanca, like 20 minutes each way by train.
Mm.
And I've had a good experience so far. You know, there's a masjid, people pray. Yes, you in the summer you do see, you know, what you see, but I think that's inevitable in, you know, most Muslim countries, apart from maybe like Saudi Arabia or the super conservative ones, where they still have kind of less liberal values.
One thing I noticed, because right now we're based in Cairo, and of course Cairo is a big tourist uh, destination. But the thing about it is that I can probably count on one hand how many tourists I've seen on a day-to-day basis over the last few years, and that's because when tourists come, they're not coming on the outskirts or the suburbs of Cairo. They're generally going to Giza for pyramids, or they're going to downtown Cairo to see the museum and this type of stuff. Would you say that it's the same like that in Morocco, or just tourists? When the tourists come, they're just everywhere in every neighborhood and every place.
No, I would say it's exactly what you're saying. It depends on where you're going. So if you go to, like, let's say Chefchaouen, or you go to Marrakesh, Sahat al Fina, you know, the market, you'll find tourists everywhere constantly. Once in a blue moon, you might see a tourist in a random place, like, what are you doing here? Like,
Right.
right? But generally speaking, yeah, tourists don't know about those places and they have no interest in those places, right? What there's no reason for them to be there, and that's why you don't find them there.
Obviously, uh, a practicing person doesn't want to be around, like you said, I guess the beaches and people's lack of the way they dress and the way they think sometimes of Europeans. So in that case, obviously, a person will want to interact more with local people. Would you say, for Moroccan culture, is it easy for people to come and integrate with the local Moroccans?
Oh, 100%. They're one of the most friendly, hospitable people I've ever met. I mean, everyone probably says that about the country that, you know, they're in love with. But the thing is, I've experienced it, and many others have. Like, I can give you an example. Like, one of my dad's friends, he offered me his home completely free, like just forever, just to stay in it. He's got multiple houses.
Forever.
Yeah, like just live. And he was serious.
Okay.
He wasn't joking. And I have another friend, you know, who actually helped me out with a lawyer, that friend, and he was on holiday when I entered Morocco. And the thing is, we've never actually met face to face. We met online via a mutual friend, and we kind of kept in touch. So I hadn't met him until that, you know, at all since, you know, we started talking. And he offered me the keys to his apartment for me and my family till he gets back. You can use it. That kind of hospitality and that trust, that I've never experienced it, to be honest. Even though I'm Muslim, but being brought up in the UK, that just doesn't happen, especially London. You don't
Right.
see that. And because it does require trust. And if I'm honest, you know, coming from London, I've built a resistance to trusting people so easily, because
Right.
it's like, I don't know you. You could be
Right.
crazy person, right? So
Right. Right. Some people don't know, but the Moroccan dialect, the Darija, did you, of course, I don't know if it was spoken in your house, or how much of it did you know when you first came to Morocco?
أنا كان هدر شوية ولكن مش بزاف, which means I can speak a little bit, not a lot. I can communicate. It wasn't spoken in the house. I kind of just picked it up here and there, naturally, you know.
Right. Right.
And so I can get by. I can communicate, and I can kind of basically have a conversation. But I wouldn't be able to do like a YouTube video in Darija, like
Right. Right. Right.
yeah.
Right. If a person comes from another place, let's say Egypt, for example, and he wants to interact, I know Egypt has this their movies and this thing, like everybody knows it across the Arabic speaking world. But how difficult would it be for somebody that has some Arabic background, even Fusha or whatever, to get around at least on a basic level?
Well, if you speak Fusha, you can get around, especially if the person you're speaking to is educated. If they went to school, basically, you can get around. But it's quite funny because they don't obviously usually speak Fusha, so you can see they put on like the Fusha face, almost like they're speaking Shakespearean English. Like
Right.
they're not used to it, right? But they can do it, of course, because they went to school. You can get around with French in some places, Spanish. A lot of people speak English. Communication is not the biggest problem. It's only an issue if you're dealing with like someone at a shop and they have no English, they don't speak Fusha, and you don't speak any other language. It's just Google Translate at that point.
And is that a difficult process? Because I know in Turkey when we did that, they like switched off. They didn't like this Google Translate past the phone, listen to the translation type thing.
No, I think I watched one of your videos regarding the hospital or something in translation. I can't remember. There was
Mhm.
something. Yeah. So good thing here, just to answer different parts of the question, is the hospitals here. Most doctors speak English. I've
Okay,
noticed, at least a bit anyway. Most of them
right.
can speak to a good conversational level. When it comes to Google Translate and stuff, no, people are patient here, and especially how technology is improved now, you can kind of just speak and speak. There's no need to type. It's easier
Right.
now. Obviously, it's not a paradise. There are people maybe who will be frustrated, but generally, from my experience and others, and just the vibe and the nature of Moroccans, yeah, no, they'll be happy to kind of communicate with you and help you out.
So, what about the job market? Because people ask a lot about how they will sustain themselves if they moved. Is the job market good there in Morocco? Or
It's funny you say that because literally my next video is going to be about work and job market. I haven't put it out yet, but basically, I would not recommend getting a job in Morocco or looking for a job,
mm,
because the salaries are not what you're used to, and you could easily make that salary online. Well, I don't want to say
mm,
easily, make it seem easy, but you can get the same salary for a part-time job online, right?
mm,
The only time I would recommend it is if you're specialized in a specific field, like let's say finance, and you work for an international company, right?
right,
And you get an international wage, then fine. Working
right.
for a local place, yeah, you might find some good places, but generally speaking, yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. It's not what you do. I would say come to Morocco if you have a remote job, if you have a business, or if you do some kind of services online where you could, like teaching or something, and that's the best way, in my opinion.
I mean, would you say it's difficult to live on a for a foreigner to live on a Moroccan wage, just a general Moroccan wage?
It's a difficult question because it depends on what wage. Different industries have different wages.
Right.
But if you're in a good position in Morocco, like one of the top positions, let's say a nice position, then yeah, you can live. But if you're in a
Mm.
normal entry level position, then it won't be enough for, I'd say, the Western lifestyle, because probably most people watching this are coming from the Western world and they're used to certain things. You can
Right.
survive, don't get me wrong, but we're not used to surviving. Alhamdulillah, we have, you know,
Right.
comfortable lives. So
In certain big cities, let's take Cairo for example. A person that's a go getter, that's constantly looking for opportunity and moves on opportunities. They can become quite wealthy in Cairo. Cairo has almost everything you could think of in terms of restaurants, shopping malls, different type of investment opportunities, property, all kind of stuff. What would you say about Morocco? I know that's kind of a broad question because I'm sure you have cities that are better for this than others. So if a person wants to start a business, he's a real go getter. Maybe he has some capital. What's the business world like there?
Morocco's continuously developing, and I think their GDP is every year is going up, right? The business world has a lot of, it's not saturated. There's a lot of room for like businesses to grow, develop, especially the online market. It's very
Mm.
underdeveloped. That's, in my opinion, that's a gold mine. The only issue is if you want to do that kind of business, you need a big investment, and it requires consumer behavior to change from offline to offline online, which is happening slowly but surely. That's one side of things. If you as a foreigner or an outsider wants to start a business in Morocco, I would highly recommend starting something related to tourists or people
Mm.
coming from outside for several
Mm.
reasons. Number one, that's where the money is, and even the Moroccans know that they have lots of industry for tourists. And number two, you can make a lot of seasonal money. So, for example, the place I live in, Bosnia, a new cafe opened up. They're Moroccan Italians, right? They
Mm.
just launched in the summer, and within 3 or 4 months, you could see it was constantly busy, like literally packed. Every second there was a transaction happening, and
Mm.
from my guess, I think they're making the bulk of their money just within 3 or 4 months, right? Of that peak season. Now, if you're planning to go to a super tourist destination, like where I am is a tourist destination in the summer, but generally throughout the year it's not. But places like Marrakesh, Tangier, Casablanca, maybe Rabat, they have maybe year-round people visiting. If you could set up something targeted towards foreigners or outsiders, I think you're more likely to succeed. Dealing with the locals, isn't tricky. It's trickier because we don't know necessarily consumer behavior. We don't know how they think properly. We don't know their buying habits and what they're willing to spend. There's a lot more unknowns that you have to tackle.
To get your step-by-step guidance on relocating to the Muslim world, go to makehijrah.com/blueprint. In some places, to get a residency and to get pretty much long-term residency, you can look at marriage as an option. How easy is it to marry a Moroccan person, male or female? And are there any benefits in terms of residency when you marry a local?
That's a good question. I would say, I don't want to say it's easy or hard. I would say it's doable. Like I have one client actually who just got engaged to a Moroccan person. He's from the UK. He's a brother and she's a sister. She's Moroccan. He's British, right? So it's definitely doable, and I know people who have done it. When it comes to benefits, yes. If the tricky part here is, I believe it's recently changed to, I believe, so don't quote me on this. You can double check online. Previously, if a Moroccan lady got married to a foreign man, she could still bring him in and do the dependent visa and all that stuff. But they're changing it apparently. But please check this, double check it, because I heard it literally the other day. I never verified it. This is just something that I heard. They're changing the law. They're planning to change the law. The other way around, if the guy is Moroccan and the lady's a foreigner, then it's normal because he's Moroccan. She can come. The prerequisites aren't very hard. He just needs to prove he has money to sustain the family or sustain her, and bring a bunch of documents. And it's really not difficult in terms of what's required.
What I've noticed from talking to many different people and people that are trying to make a transition or trying to move to the Muslim world, a lot of times we think that we can talk to them and say, "Oh, it's great. It costs $200. This costs $50. The electric is this much, whatever," and that's good information. But they don't know what to do practically. So if they left the country and just showed up in Morocco, okay, what do I do now? I understand that you offer some services to help people with the relocation, which is, we need more of this. And I'm thinking that even I would tell people all the time, if they have a channel or any information, blog or whatever, to just keep it going, because there is no monopoly on this information, and it shouldn't be. And we shouldn't think like that. If something happened to our channel, it should be another channel they can just hop to, or they can look at a series of channels to get different perspectives. So let's talk a little bit about what you offer and how you help people move to Morocco.
Inshallah. Okay. So let me tell you, first of all, why I kind of created this service. It wasn't part of the plan of moving to Morocco. It wasn't my intention. It was based on experience. If I needed something, somebody else might need it. So that's what I thought about, right? Because I struggled. And in the end, I kind of had to go through the hardship. And in the end, I had to hire a lawyer. And look, not everyone's going to face this problem. Maybe you could do it by yourself. I'm not going to, try to sell my service and say you 100% need it. But if you're going through what I went through or what others might go through, then you will need it. Because it's not just the residency, actually. The service, it's like a full service, if you like. It's from, finding an apartment to kind of setting up utilities. And all of these had barriers along the way. I'll give you some examples. So one prerequisite of, getting your residency is finding an apartment and getting a rental contract. You think it's easy, right? Okay, perfect. No, the problem was whenever I found an apartment and I spoke to the landlord and said, okay, perfect, let's go to the muqata'a, which is like the place where they officialize documents and make a contract. They're like, no. From speaking to my friend, he told me that they're afraid of anything official because it could come back to bite them, like tax and all that stuff, even though it won't. It's not related or connected. So you have to find someone willing to, sign that contract. In the end, I managed to get one because the apartment owner was also a business owner, so he does contracts anyway. But if it's a general person just trying to make a bit of money on the side, they might not be comfortable with the contract. It's not always the case, but I had to deal with that. Other issues like communication at the police station, what's required, where do you get it from, how do you get it, how recent does it have to be? All these questions, it's very hard to find without communication. That's another side of thing. Simple things like utilities we also help with. Um, like I live in quite a new apartment, less than 5 years old, but the infrastructure is not built to allow fiber optic internet. So they had to drill through the wall of the apartment, right? But in order to do that, they needed permission. So for 2 months, they were kind of coming and going, the company, just kind of like without taking initiative and finding the right person. I had to do all the groundwork and like say, okay, here's the paper, sign it, get permission. Okay, start the work, please. And it took 2 months. And the annoying thing is, my work relies on the good internet connection, so I had to pay a fortune on hotspots for my phone.
Right.
Yeah, basically, yeah, it's a full service from airport pickup, help you with your luggage, even provide food, because sometimes when you land, it's night and everything is closed, and that's what happened to me, right? All the way till residency. And obviously, the legal side of things are all done by the lawyer. I don't touch that. I do all the running around and basically break down those barriers I had to break down myself. It's basically making it stress-free for person moving, inshallah. Yeah.
Okay, so once you go through the initial process of getting your residency taken care of, renting the apartments, your utilities, and these things, and your local area, and buying food, etc. Okay, so now after a few months, let's say 6 months, okay, I'm settled. Now I'm going into my routine. I'm sending the kids to school. I'm doing this, whatever. Okay, now, how difficult is it to renew? Okay, I got a year, 6 months, whatever I got. Okay, so now I have to come again and renew everything. And let me just preface this question and why it's important. Let's take Cairo, for example. If you rent an apartment, okay, you get it for 1 year, let's say, and let's say the first 2 years, they'll raise the rent about 10%, let's just say, right? So after, yeah, they'll raise it about 10%. But more realistically, like you'll stay there for a year, contract's up, okay, new contract, they might raise it 100%.
100? Wow.
Yeah, 100%. Even more than that sometimes. It just depends on the economy and what's going on. Your decision now is, okay, do I want to uproot everything and move to another place? But all my furniture, all this stuff, I have to move it. And my kids know the neighbors and blah, blah, blah. Or do I just accept a 100% increase, right? So it gets even more complicated if we're talking about residency now, being unsure if I'll have the residency again. That means that's a bigger move now. If I can't get the residency, okay, now I have to move to another country, or I have to go back to where I came from. So that's my preface to the question and why it's important. So how difficult is it to renew your residency in Morocco?
It's a good question. And that's actually something people should think about, definitely. Um, I'm actually at that stage for my wife now. In October, inshallah, I'll be renewing it. I went to the police station already just to check, see what's going on, because renewal is usually easier. So I thought, maybe I don't need to bother my lawyer friend. I can just see what they want. And they basically told me all you need is the same things you needed before. So exactly what you needed before, you need again. And as long as you tick the boxes, there's no reason for them to decline, your renewal. Of course, everything is to the discretion of whoever's dealing with it. But generally speaking, if you've, fulfilled the criteria, you can renew it. And after 5 years of residency, continual residency, you can actually apply for citizenship. One of the early prerequisites is obviously you can't take a gap in between. You can't go back to the States, for example, and come back. That doesn't count. And you need to speak Arabic or Amazigh, one of the languages here in Morocco.
Okay. I want to ask you a few more questions along these lines, and then I just need a brief idea of what cost of living is like there. And I know it's going to vary based on people's standards and what have you. But some countries, they offer very short residency periods, right? Maybe 3 months, up to 3 months, 6 months, sometimes a year. And then others offer more, I would argue, more realistic options like 3 years, 5 years, 10 years even. So in Morocco, what are the options for residency? What type of time periods can we get? And what would you recommend people go for?
Initially, you can apply for a year. You can't get more than a year, right? And for that, one of the hardest criteria for most people is to show, well, not for most people, for some people, is to show proof of funds. You need to prove you can sustain yourself for that year. So it's roughly, I'm giving you an estimate because it depends on the city and the cost of living each. That's another thing in Morocco. Depending on where you're applying, some criteria can change. Let's say $1,000 or €1,000 a month you need to prove for your time of your residency. Then you can reapply after that. I have to double check when it comes to tourists coming in who are not married to a Moroccan, but generally speaking, your residency can increase in time each application. So from 1 year, then okay, fine, it's 2 years now. They can see, especially if you have an apartment, like you buy one eventually, that you actually live here and you're part of the society, etc. Then after those 5 years, it's up to the person. They can just avoid the headache and just get citizenship and not have to deal with that anymore, all that stuff.
Would you say that the process for the residency permits, etc., let's say that you have a lawyer, you have somebody that knows how things go, would you say that the people are easygoing about this, or would you say it's bureaucratic and this one has to get something signed from the person over there, that person has to pass it to this one, and then they can say yes, no, whatever? Or is it just you come, the guy gives what they need, and they look it over and it's like, okay, stamp, go ahead?
It's in the middle, I would say. As long as you have your documents that are all, they have the apostille on it, they're all official, etc. You submit your application. Once they've approved everything, it's not done. It has to be sent to Rabat, and there's like a background check that's done, criminal check, all that kind of checking who you are thing. After that, and that process can take a long time. It can take 3 months or even more sometimes. It really depends. Because it depends where you are, because it gets sent all the way to Rabat, right? Other small issues are like, it's a very don't worry about it society. So I was expecting a call to say, for example, my wife's card is ready. They said, yeah, we'll call you, but I had to keep going because eventually I know they're not going to call me. And one of the days I popped in, oh yeah, it's ready. I never received the call. So you have to you have to take your initiative and make sure everything's done properly. Another small issue I had is, I went to the police station to check on the application. They're like, did you pay the fee? I'm like, what do you mean, did I pay the fee? I paid like, did I give you a receipt? No, there's no receipt. Then he checked his money box. Oh yeah, you did pay me. So things like that, you learn from experience, and with the service, inshallah, we try to avoid any small mishaps. Even when it comes to getting an apartment, if you move into a furnished apartment, you have some landlords when you leave, they're like, you broke this, where's this? They might forget, they might try to scam you. Allahu alam. The point is to avoid that, like we take a picture of everything, document it, timestamp it, leave it. It sounds crazy, but it just avoids issues.
Some people, I've heard that some people that come to Morocco choose to make border runs. What's your opinion about that?
Well, I had to do it 4 times before I finally got residency. So my opinion is, it's not ideal. Depends where you are in Morocco. If you're right next to the border, fine, it's doable. But I don't think it's long-term sustainable, and it doesn't really help you because you're not really setting your roots in Morocco. You're not allowing yourself to possibly get citizenship. It's a headache, especially if you have a family, and the cost can start to rack up depending on where you live in Morocco. Traveling all the way to it's a place called Septa. It's like a Spanish territory within Morocco, about an hour and something away from Tangier. So I did it 4 times, and one annoying thing is always having it in the back of your mind, thinking, well, when's that time? Just like, for me personally, I don't like alarm clocks. So yeah, that's one issue I would say. Some people do it long term, but I wouldn't recommend doing it, when you've got a family, especially if you're a young man and you're trying to see if you like Morocco before you commit, then fine, do it a few times. But there's other potential problems, like if a COVID happens again, or if laws change, anything's possible. To give you that peace of mind, yeah, try to get residency if you're serious about Morocco.
To get your consultation from people on the ground in the Muslim world, go to consultation.makehijrah.com.
Okay, so let's wrap it up with a few details, right? So if you're coming from a Western country, generally speaking, You're used to certain stability with utilities like electricity, gas, landline, internet, mobile internet, etc. So on a scale from 1 to 10, and I know that it can vary from place to place, but let's just speak in generality, right? What would you give Morocco for the stability of the essential services that a Westerner will be looking for?
Good question. It really depends where you're located. Because obviously, if you're in a rural village, it would be very low. Everything would be slow, the internet, etc. But if you're living in or close to one of the major cities, if you're talking about things like internet, I would say, it's a 8 or 9 out of 10, or even 10 out of 10. There's up to 1,000 megabytes, fiber optic internet. You can get 100 and 200 easily. The phone signal's good everywhere. It has a decent train system through the major cities. So like I live next to the train station, and I can get to Casablanca, I can get to Rabat. It has a train called Al Buraq, which is a speed train or a bullet train from different cities. Like I've taken the one from Rabat to Tangier. It took like an hour and 10 or 20 minutes. So among, I would say, the Muslim nations or the African nations is quite developed in terms of its infrastructure and its comfort. So there's parts of Morocco you go to, you see massive malls like Marina Mall or Morocco Mall, and you get that Western life. But then you also get the traditional alleyways. It's a nice mix.
In terms of electricity, are there any power cuts or anything like that that you have to worry about?
I think I experienced a power cut once, and this was in a more it was in a more rural area. That was once. But in the place I am now, in Bosnia, I don't think I've experienced any power cuts. Never. Once there was a water cut because they were working on the water, but it was for like half an hour.
So this is like maintenance, general maintenance type stuff, huh?
I don't know the exact cause, but it must have been maintenance because it was only like half an hour or something.
Okay, that's to be expected.
Let's group those services together. Those are essential services, at least for us. What we're looking at as far as a pricing range, like how much should you expect to spend? And I know that it varies, but if you can just range it and say, okay, anywhere from this to this.
I can break it down. It'll be easier.
Okay.
So for the internet, maybe 400 to 500 dirham, $40 to $50 for fiber optic internet, high speed good internet. If you want ADSL slow internet, it's hardly any. It's like maybe $10 or less. Electricity, depending on the season, you can spend anywhere between $20 all the way to $100. If your shower is an electric shower, obviously that it goes more to the $100 range. But if you don't have an electric shower and it's gas, then maybe $30, $20, something like that every month.
Right. Do you need AC there?
It's not a need. I wouldn't say it's. I don't have AC, and if you don't have AC, a fan would suffice. In Marrakesh and places like that, 100% you need an AC. But the location I'm at, you don't really need an AC. You could do with one in the summer, but it's not essential in my opinion. When it comes to phone contracts and phone bills, like I have a SIM card. I think it's like 50 dirham, which is like $5. Sorry, $5 a month, and you get like 4 or 5 gig of data, and you get minutes, etc. Train tickets are very cheap. From where I am to Rabat and Casablanca, it's like 20 dirham, $2. You can also get those shared taxis, which are about the same price depending on where you're going, and those are when it comes to utilities and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know. Were you asking just about utilities, right?
Yeah, just utilities for now. So it's basically less than $500.
Yeah. Less than 5 for you
if you budget like that. Okay, so now I've been to different places and I've seen different building styles. Some places have they use just bricks and concrete. So sometimes it's not insulated well, so it might be really, really hot or really, really cold or whatever. Moroccan style construction. I want to talk about the rents as well, just on the range, and then how they build, because some places build up 12 floors, 14 floors, or whatever, and have some people build wide, and you have all these different people in a building. I remember in Malaysia, you had these buildings that were you'll come off on the floor. It seemed like you're on the ground floor, but you're on the 10th floor or something. And then they have swimming pools and whatever. So they're trying to make it so that you don't have to leave the building. And some of these buildings are built upon the malls even. So what is the construction style there? Is it mainly like single family homes or big apartment buildings? Or, and again, I know that it differs from place to place, but just give a general idea.
Like you said, it is very mixed. In the more city areas, like city, it's more high rises. But in other places, there are like old traditional family villas type houses, right? Very old, not very old, but old construction, big bricks, really cool inside in the summer. Tiles, pillars. I don't know if you've seen it. It's nice. It's actually quite nice. I like those kinds of houses. It's like traditional. Then you get the more modern apartments being built, and they're more European style. They've got European, decor and layout, and they're quite well insulated. It's not too hot or too cold. Maybe modern technology, right? They have new builds. So yeah, you get high rises, maybe like you can get up to 10 floors. I don't want to give you the exact numbers, but I've seen really high ones and I've seen medium ones. It's a big mix in Morocco. You do get those condos with swimming pools, gyms, etc. Like local shops, very local. It's kind of like a community within the city, like a little closed off, secured with security everywhere. So yeah, there's that side of things. There's also modern houses being built, modern villas, which look less Moroccan. They look more like a modern villa. But if you're initially moving to Morocco, you're probably going to be focusing on like probably an apartment to begin with. So yeah, you can get an apartment for, let's say, $400, less than 5 years old, with swimming pools, with security, with 2 rooms for like $400 to $700, something like that, or more, of course, depending on. And this is like good build quality, like the good stuff. The different qualities of apartment, right? If you bought it, it would cost you like $100,000, let's say.
Right.
And it's being rented out for like $400 to $700. Depends on your landlord, of course, but yeah.
And how do you pay rent there? Is it month to month or
month to month? Yeah, you can do a yearly contract and pay month to month. You can pay via like bank transfer easily at the time of when it's time to pay. You just transfer the money over. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it when it comes to renting.
What is your opinion about your neighbors and how you deal with your neighbors and neighborhoods? And I don't know if you know where I'm coming from with this question, but like you mentioned, you spent time in Japan. I'm sure there's a culture when it comes to how you deal with your neighbors and not being too loud or too whatever.
Yeah.
I noticed that in Turkey, that in order to open a business, you have to get all the neighbors to agree to have that business in the building, because it can cause disruption, and that's what's more important to them, is making sure that neighbors are not disrupted or offended. And the same thing, like if you have children and they're running across the floor, you have to be careful with that. Morocco, what is, and let me just say Egypt, for example, you'll have a party just start up in the street, in some areas, a loud party. Nobody asked, nobody said, can we do it at this time? So it'd be at 10 o'clock at night, and then just bam, lights and big music and everything. So every place has its way. So what about Morocco? What is the way of the Moroccan people in dealing with neighbors and these things?
Generally, of course, they're courteous towards neighbors, no problem. But it's more like Egypt in terms of like, if there's a wedding, don't worry about your sleep. It's wedding. So, other things like where I am particularly, it gets very busy in the summer, right? So lots of not expats, like tourists come, and they're usually Moroccan actually, but from Europe, like France, Spain, Netherlands, etc. And they're up all night by the swimming pool, like sometimes playing music till like 1 a.m. Obviously, for me, I would be like, people need to have children, they need to sleep, but they're here on holiday. They're not really thinking about that. Maybe it's a etiquette problem, but yeah, that exists as well. So it's more like Egypt, I would say, on that side of things.
Healthcare is an obvious question, especially for people that are getting older in age. What would be your rating on a scale of 1 to 10 for healthcare in Morocco?
It's a difficult question to answer for me because I've had limited exposure. I've spoken to friends about it, of course, but when it comes to public, I wouldn't recommend it because it's slow. It's even in the UK, I wouldn't recommend public, to be honest. It's slow. You wait forever. and it's just not the same as private. I would definitely recommend going private when you're in Morocco. Don't go to public hospitals or clinics. When you go to private ones, they're really good, especially in the major cities. I'm talking about Rabat, Casablanca, Tangier, those places where the money's at, basically, and where everyone gathers. Especially Rabat, a lot of the doctors are coming, they come from Europe, France, etc. Like Moroccans that moved back, so they have European, if you like, education when it comes to medical studies. They've got all the latest technology. So I would rate it when it comes to private, like 8, 9. I don't know. It's good. It's good, especially for basic things. If you need something more complex or serious, I don't know, to be honest. I'm not experienced that. But if you're just sick or you have something wrong and they check you out and give you the right diagnosis, then it's good.
Okay, so in conclusion, tell us what you're into. Tell us how we can take advantage of the services that you provide. Where are you at on social media, etc.?
Inshallah. So yeah, at the moment I have a YouTube channel. It's called Morocco Rocks. Don't ask me why I named it that. I just did.
Right.
I thought it was catchy. I have a website, moroccorocks.com, where you can book, it's a free consultation. If you want to come to Morocco and you're serious about coming to Morocco and you just want to discuss the services and potentially using it, then yeah, that's available too. I'm not really on any other social media platforms at the moment. So I'm just focusing on making some YouTube content.
All right, bro, man. Thanks for taking your time out to sit down with us. And inshallah ta'ala, we'll be in contact, inshallah.
Inshallah. And if you're ever in Morocco, you know where to come, inshallah.
Right.
Give me a visit. All right.
Get your copy of the Hijrah Handbook at book.makehijrah.com.